I want to say that the world is really tired of these wars. The failed politicians seem to have no other way to settle our conflicts than to send in generals. The conflict in Ukraine is a sad one. Today we don't have any comedians at this event. This is the first time in the past 10 years that we've been doing events that we decided not to include comedy. We're dropping candies, we're trying to do a fundraiser, but the matters that surround us in this world are pretty damn serious. But ultimately, people don't get up in the morning and say, I want to go and live under an authoritarian system. And I think what makes this country great, and I'm grateful for it, and as well as many European nations, is its diversity, its inclusiveness, its the right to freedom of speech, right for the LGBTQ community. Those things matter. The fact that women have right here matters.
All my life, I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more, there'll be no more wars, and our children will play. Those are high-minded words. But the lie for me is this. The song begins by saying, all my life, I was, just like most people in the army, deceived. So I cannot pray. All my life, I've been praying that there'll be no more war. To pray for an army soldier headed to kill is to bless war. And every year we have a high holiday called Thanksgiving, in which we glorify invasion. Every sporting event, we stand as communities and celebrate the words bombs bursting in air. We do not have to have it. There's a lot of things. I love the song America the Beautiful. You know, spacious skies, amber waves of grain.
That we are in day 4 of this hideous and very threatening war between Russia and Ukraine, but really the Russian invasion and attempt to overthrow the government of Ukraine. I was one of those children hiding under my desk in school in the early 60s because we were told that in case of a nuclear attack by the Soviet Union, although often people did also call it just Russia, we were to get away from the windows, which of course would shatter, and get under our desks, which would have given us exactly zero protection from the radiation and many other things. It was what we now call security theater. It was a terrorizing drill, and I grew up hating war, and of course, then a bit later, hating the Vietnam War. I also grew up loving nature, and these two threads in my life are deeply interwoven because, of course, war is the ultimate ecological and climate crime. And we had a campaign, a photo campaign, to have people all over the US make these signs, make blank, not war. And I filled mine in with make music, not war. And on my t-shirt, you can see a little bit of the campaign that I was then helping to run, which was bring our war dollars home. And that is still the message and still the task before us.
So when I was a kid, the United States invaded Panama for the 20th time. It was the culmination of about 150 years of U.S. military occupation over my mother's country, my mother's homeland, where she was born. And I remember very vividly my mother's white passing. We were at a hairdresser, and Panama was up on the news, and they, the U.S. news, CBS, NBC, the rest of them were talking about how terrible Panama is, how terrible Noriega was. And I remember the white hairdresser saying, I think we should just bomb it off the face of the planet. And my ma held it tight, and I held it tight as a 7-year-old, and we got to the car and she burst crying before she put the keys in the ignition. Around the same time, Dennis Miller was on Saturday Night Live, and during a Weekend Update segment where he was trashing Noriega and Panama, he got up with a pair of scissors and he cut Panama out of the map behind him and said, now we don't have to pay the canal fees, to uproarious applause and laughter. And in other ways, where a reporter on CBS Live said, this war is special and different than other wars because this is a civilized country, as if Iraq and Syria and Somalia and the rest of these countries aren't civilizations who deserve dignity and deserve rights and justice and respect and are part of a global system just as much. I remember many times the cops told me something that was very, very similar when they were policing Black and Latinx communities, that to the kinds of genocidal impulse that they had, that so many people in this country have about countries in Asia and Africa and Latin America. It was a lot of everybody in these communities are drug dealers. I don't want to continue. I don't want to go on. I mean, we know about the racism of police, but it was a very similar impulse. And these are the people who we are now giving weapons, massive amounts of weapons, as well as vehicles and other military grade equipment and gear to.
And as Vahid said, there's no comedians today. And today we speak to you all with heavy hearts and a deep sense of familiarity, because here we go one more time. The horrific scourge of a new war is hanging over our heads again. And of course, my thoughts are with the people of Ukraine who are suffering under the massive Russian invasion and who are resisting it in so many ways, both armed and otherwise. My thoughts are also with all of the other people around the world who are enduring wars, some of them for years or even decades, and these wars that receive far less attention in the US corporate media. Maybe that's because some of those wars are being perpetrated or enabled by the United States under the deadly umbrella of the so-called war on terror. It's never ending, it's worldwide, and it's in 22nd year now. And as Russian bombs are hitting Ukrainian apartments and orphanages and schools, I can't help but think about the US bombing of homes, schools, hospitals, mosques, wedding parties, funerals, and so many other different people and places and countries around the world. And I'm reminded of the fact that since waging the only nuclear war in human history, the US military has killed more foreign civilians than any other armed force on the planet by far, with a death toll in the millions and still growing. So yeah, of course, my thoughts are with the people of Ukraine, but they're also with the millions of other people around the world, most of them brown and Black people, who live and die with war as a fact of life, and far too often as the result of policies and actions of my own government, the greatest purveyor of violence in the world today.